You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Steve today. Steve is a listener who reached out from north of Boston, Massachusetts, which I'm excited to hear what he's experienced. We don't get a lot of, I guess you can maybe consider that the North Shore area on the show. So it's a privilege to have him on. But Steve, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Jeremiah?
Doing great. Always a great afternoon when I'm able to talk to people from all over the U.S. about what they've experienced. But Steve, I want to make sure you have the time to share your experiences today. So, feel free to take us back to when you first started experiencing things and what it is that you experienced.
Sure, no problem. First of all, I'd like to say that in my mind, I shouldn't have ever seen this thing. And I don't think that, I don't know, there's some, I don't want to say there's some kind of plan or anything, but all I'm saying is I had no thought about ever seeing one. To kind of explain my reason, I need to take you back to 1969 and 1970. I grew up in Cambridge, and in Cambridge there are two big universities. There's Harvard University and there's MIT, and both these universities, I think that the fathers, so-called, of Cambridge kind of, trying to do they reached out to these universities to try to get them to do certain things. I'm sure that there's some kind of deal they have. But anyways, in '69, I was part of this program called Challenge, and what they did was, one of the things they did was, they gave us the opportunity, because a lot of Cambridge kids, to stay in a lodge, a ski lodge, up in Jackson, New Hampshire, for like 2 weeks. And it was really a great place to stay and to be at. It was so good. In fact, next year, in 1970, I got the opportunity to be a junior counselor up there for the whole summer. And it was the greatest experience ever, especially for a city kid. If I could kind of draw a picture of this place, it was like a wooden house that was on the big side with a lot of rooms. Like, they had common rooms on the first floor and rooms that you stay in on the second floor. And there was a front of the house and there was a back of the house. So this place had a mountain in the back, probably went up about maybe 1,000 feet or so. And then in the front, there was the road. I believe at that time it was a dead-end road. It didn't really go all the way through. I think it does today. But across the street was some bushes, and on the other side of the bushes was the stream. And it was just really a wonderful place to be. And one of the counselors told me that on the other side of the stream, there were the beaver lakes and a beaver dam. And, for a city kid, I've never seen that. And for the first time in my life, I got the chance to stand on a beaver hutch. But getting back to the story about Bigfoot, as good as the place was, there was one thing about the place that kind of creeped me out. And that was the rear of the house, there was a carriage house. And the carriage house had like a standard opening for a door. Maybe it was like 10 feet wide and maybe 15 feet tall. And it had like a 60-watt bulb hanging from the inside, the middle of the inside, that you hit a switch for to turn on. And it was creepy in the daytime to me. And what we used to do was throw the trash in there and take it to the dump, like maybe twice a week. So one day while I was at the house there, I just got this feeling. I went outside and I seen these kids, some of the younger campers, going into the wood line on the back of the house where the mountain was. So I kind of went after them. I caught up to them. I said, "Hey, what are you kids doing?" He said, "We want to climb the mountain." I said, "All right." I mean, it was the middle of the day. We weren't doing anything that day. So I said, let's go. I'm not a great woodsman, and it's not like I can navigate like crazy, but it's like it's up the mountain and down the mountain. You really couldn't get lost. So we started up, and we were on a what do you call it? What are those animal trails? And we were about a third of the way up, and there was this ravine, and it was like about 80 feet wide and about maybe 100 feet deep, maybe 120 feet deep, and it was almost straight up and down. So we went to the left to try to see if there's an end to it, and what we ended up seeing was there was this cave across on the other side of the ravine, and so this is like a deciduous forest, meaning that there's leaves that drop all over the place every fall, and you can see on the side of the wall of the ravine that there were leaves all over the place. And when we saw this cave, it had these weird slabs. The slabs were about as big as a hood of a Ford F-150, and they were kind of molded together with a big slab of rock on top of it that was a little bit bigger. And it was like way out of place. It kind of made me a little nervous because it just didn't look right. It just didn't look right. And I think one of the things that I thought about later was that in front of that cave, there was like about a 7 by 5 foot platform. And there was not one leaf on that platform whatsoever. But you look up and down the ravine, there was leaves everywhere. So at that time, we didn't have like video cameras or telephone cameras. And I suggested to the kids that maybe we ought to go back. And not one of them objected. They were ready to go. So I think maybe we were all feeling a little weirded by this. And it wouldn't strike me till years later, after the invent of the internet, that maybe the creepiness of the carriage house and the fact that there was a cave, or maybe there were more caves. I don't know. We didn't go that far, and we certainly couldn't see the side we were on, whether there was any kind of cave there. And I mean, the cave was only about 5 foot high and maybe about 4 foot wide, but you couldn't see in it because we were above it a little bit, and the slab kind of stuck out. And it was just kind of strange to me. I always wanted to write the people that own that property now and ask them if they've ever seen it or took a picture of it or anything. But anyway, that's one thing. There was another incident where not an incident, but a happenstance where we were taking the kids on a hike through the woods. And I cannot remember where we were. We're definitely in the White Mountains somewhere. We came through the woods to this lumber road, I guess. And we decided to take a break. On the side that we came out of were the woods. And on the other side of the road was this clear-cut area that had all these young trees in it. And you couldn't really see past. I said you couldn't see about 15 feet in. It was just, there were so many trees that you couldn't see past them. So I was always the last in line to make sure that we didn't lose anybody. And the guy heading the walk, the trip, was up in front. So we got up there to the road. He decided, let's take a break. So I'm good with that. So he was at the front, and I was at the back, and I got this really weird feeling, and I'm facing down the road towards him. And I'm looking around to my left and to my right. And I got this, when I looked at a 7 o'clock position, I got this really bad feeling. It was very strange. I've never felt anything like that since. I've had other feelings where, I was uncomfortable, but nothing like that. It was like it was a throbbing from the top of my head to the tail of my spinal cord. And I'd turn around, I'd look at him, and then I'd look back. At 8 o'clock, it would get a little kinky. At 7 o'clock, I'd get that kind of throbbing feeling. And then I'd do the same thing in the other direction. I must have done it 2 or 3 times, because when I looked up at him, he's staring at me, and he's going, "What?" He's trying to do it so the kids won't see it. And I just go, "I don't know," kind of back to him, and I do it again a couple of times. And he says, "All right, let's go, kids. Let's move on." We only spent like about 5 minutes there. And as soon as I got about 50 feet away, I felt a lot better. And I never forgot that. And I always thought that was strange. I had no explanation for it, and no reasoning for it. So, life goes on. I did some time in the Coast Guard and got married, and about 85, and then about 93, we were living in Cambridge in the house that my brother and mother had purchased while I was away in the Coast Guard. And, 93, we decided to buy our own house and move. So we ended up moving north of Austin. And the place we live is a lovely town. And as I want to do, I love to explore. I love to go to different places and check out all the different roads. As I'm trying to learn the neighborhood. And so I found this road that was kind of obscure. And every now and then they'd close it because of when it rained, it flooded. It went from asphalt to like a dirt road. And then it would, go back to asphalt at some point. And you can tell that the road was barely ever used, because it was totally disrespected. And by what I mean by that is that people would throw wash machines out at it, on the side of the road. And I seen an oven up there. And there was also a place with one of those gates that the park rangers install. It's the metal pipe that goes across with the little piece that supports it, swings back and forth. So after about the third time I went through there, I decided to park and go take a look at the place. So I parked and I get out and start walking through the woods, and then the woods clear out because it leads into a wetland. And so I passed this pond. The pond's kind of like 50 feet across and about maybe 80 foot long. And it just has scrub around it. And as I was walking I got to the side of the pond, I looked down and I see shotgun shells. I see like about 4, I don't know, I think they were maybe a double lot. I'm not sure what they were. I think they were like red shotgun shells. I picked one up and take a look at it. And then I'm thinking to myself, geez, I don't want to be around here. People are shooting guns off. And, I don't know, at that time, I don't know nothing about hunting season or anything like that. But I know I didn't. I kind of started looking around, and I got a feeling like, I don't want to be there. I shouldn't be in this place. So I just left. And it turns out that when I actually saw a Bigfoot, it was part of that wetland area. So be that as it may. In 2023, I retired from the job I had, and I had a few dollars in the bank, and I had all kinds of plans about maybe doing one thing or another. And one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to go to the Fort Lauderdale boat show down in Florida. So I was thinking about it all summer and kind of looking at the money I had in the bank. I'm not taking into consideration my retirement, which I didn't get into yet. But, it's kind of going through that money faster than I wanted to, because I was trying to get used to being retired. And it's kind of a transition to do that. So I was hemming and hawing about it. I was getting some dental work done during the summer, and the dentist wanted to finish off the job on the 24th of October. And the 24th of October, it was when I wanted to kind of fly down and be at the Fort Lauderdale boat show. So after thinking about it, I said, screw it. I can always do it next year. and I relented to doing the dental procedure. So October 24th, the day of the dental procedure, I had it at 9 o'clock, and that was done by 10. I went home and took a couple of Tylenol and just kind of sat there waiting for the pain, and it never really came that bad. So about 1:30 in the afternoon, I was getting a little hungry, and I decided to take one of the various ways to the nearest town, to my favorite Chinese food place, and get some fried dumplings. I figured that would be nice and soft and small, and I could eat those. So I get in the truck, and this is where it gets kind of strange, and it's hard for me to believe thinking about it. I get in the truck, and I decide to listen to an episode from a different show, actually, of a Bigfoot. So I turned that on, and I really wanted to hear it just to keep my mind from thinking about my tooth and the fact that it might start aching like crazy. So I got in the truck, went down this nice road I like to go down. It's kind of semi-populated. I mean, you never lose sight of a house when you're driving down it, but it's got a lot of woods, and there's a lot of trees and wetlands here and there. And at one point, I take a right to head towards the highway. And this area is like Byfield, Georgetown, Groveland, West Newburyport area, north of Boston. So I'm driving down the road, and where the wetland, there's a wetland that you pass through, and where the wetland is, the road is dirt, because every now and then the road, gets a little janky from the wetlands beside it. So on this particular day, the road was horrid. I mean, it was like full of potholes. And I must have been going about between 3 and 5 miles an hour to get through the damn thing. So at the very end, I'm just about stopped trying to get through a couple of potholes. And on the left side of the road, I see this truck pulling some lawn cutting equipment coming down. And I'm thinking, he's going to get this truck and his equipment beat to hell. And then further up, there's this person coming down the driveway on a bike. And so I'm starting to pass this truck hauling the equipment. And I'm looking at the truck, because it looked like a truck that I once owned. It was beat to hell like a truck I once owned right before I sold it. And all of a sudden, I started having this micro conversation with myself, saying, the conversation sounds like this in my head: "Hey, stupid, you just saw a kid or a guy up on the right side of the road in a hoodie, dressed in black, gliding down a driveway. But you've traveled this road for 30 years, and you know well there ain't no driveway there." So I look up look back up the road, and I see this big black kind of a person. I still think it's on a bike, because it turned real quick and started heading back into the woods. So it accelerated, it was like instant acceleration. And I figured, well, he must be on an e-bike. And then I saw the leg step, and then a second step. And I was like, no, you can't be seeing this. You got a freaking Bigfoot show on that you've lost track of because of all the potholes, and you're seeing a Bigfoot? No, that can't be. And I'm looking at this thing, and I got a camera, my phone, sitting on the console, and I say to myself, well, I can reach for my camera and probably miss everything trying to get the thing on, or I could just watch and observe and take everything in that I can see. And this thing starts running. Now it's running with the arms down by its side. It's a strange kind of run. It's just kind of, I don't know. everything on it was smooth. The reason why I thought it was a kid on a bike, because when it came down, there was a slight incline in the woods. When it came down to the road, it looked like it was gliding. And when it started back up again, it had the same kind of motion. And the first thing that struck me was, I can't see the head. Where's the head? And the shoulders on this thing must have been as big as a basketball. And it does something weird with the sunlight. And I couldn't actually make out the arms, but they weren't swinging away from the body. It was black. It was fast. And it didn't appear to be going as fast as it could go. It was just running straight up and down. And one of the things I said to myself was, look, notice everything. And I couldn't see the head. And I'm thinking to myself, where's the head? So finally, I look just below the shoulder. I could see like an eye ridge. And below that, I could see the nose. And below that, I could see the mouth or the lips or something. And people say that sometimes they have a head the size of a bucket. That's kind of what I was looking at. This thing was, the face was very large, and the damn thing was I would say it was about 8 to 9 feet tall. Especially revisiting that spot and looking at it, it was just amazing to see. And it must have ran about 60 feet. And I know from post visits to the place that there's a rock, maybe about 4 feet high, and it cleared the rock like it was nothing. There was a slight hump up in the air and then back down again, and it went into the trees, did a slight left turn, and it was gone. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So of all days, the day that I thought I might be going down to Fort Lauderdale, I was kind of bummed about missing that trip, but I see this thing. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And when I first saw this thing, I'll try to give a standard kind of distance. If there's any kind of standard between telephone poles, and there are no telephone poles on that road, I would say that it was like about 2 telephone poles away when I first saw it. And I was accelerating toward it because I was going about maybe 10 miles an hour and speeding up because I was on the asphalt again. And I think I probably got as close as maybe a telephone pole length and a half to it. And I was just, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I went on to the Newburyport and got my food. And all the time I'm waiting for my food, I'm checking out the map in my truck. I got a nice big map here on it. And I'm looking at the streets around that place. And I get my food, I'm eating. I couldn't really concentrate on eating. I said, I got to go back. And what I did was I went to the next street over in the direction it was heading, because I kind of wanted to see it again. And I wanted to see it from my truck. I didn't want to get out and see it because I don't know how to describe it. But anyways, I went to the next street over, and it turns out that it also had at a certain section, it also had one of those forestry gates blocking the road. And I think that that road actually had flooded every now and then. They just ended up closing it. And the weird thing about the two weird things about other than seeing that Bigfoot, there was a house at the end of that road, the one that was blocked off, that was for sale. And it was like the only house up at the very end. And then the house on the street where I actually seen the thing, that house was for sale. And I'm wondering to myself, if if they have some kind of habituation and they're thinking about getting out of there, because obviously there's Bigfoot in the area because I just saw one. And, so I decided just to go home, and I'm home and I'm thinking about it, thinking about it, and thinking about it. And about just before it got dark, about 3:30, because this was in October, I decided to go back to where I saw it and see if I could take a picture of any kind of footprint. But, there was so many leaves around, and I ain't no tracker. I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm just trying to see if I can find anything in the mud that looked like a footprint. And, I couldn't find anything. Up on on that road where I saw that Bigfoot, I saw it over to the right. And up to the left, there was an incline up to a house that sat up there, maybe about 400 feet away. And I could hear some kind of soiree going on up there. And just, I don't know, it just kind of made me think, was it just trying to get through before something got rolling on the other side? I mean, I have no idea, none whatsoever. And I've always, and what's strange to me is I've always, like I said, I've lived up here for like 30 plus years. And I've always thought to myself, if I ever see a Bigfoot, if that ever happens, it's going to happen in this area where the swamp was. I didn't a swamp or wetland, whatever you want to call it. I never expected it to happen like just up the road. And I know nothing about nothing when it comes to being a woodsman, but the fact that I kind of felt like that was the place kind of freaked me out too when I was thinking about it. It's just something very strange that had happened. And so the year after I seen that thing, man, I'm freaked out. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks after I had seen it, I wouldn't go outside. I wouldn't go outside at night unless I was running to my truck or running back in, because I was freaked out. And my house is surrounded by a wooded area, especially in the back. I got about 80 yards of woods until it hits the next house on the next street. And it took me a couple of weeks to think to myself, look, you've been living here for 30 years. Nothing's ever happened. You never heard of anything ever happening. The thing obviously wanted nothing to do with you because it took off, and it took off fast. Matter of fact, it ran so fast that, I'm a gun owner, and, I go to the range every now and then. I think that I would have to expend about 12 or 15 clips to get a deed and actually hit something like that, which I would never do because I think it would just piss it off and it would turn around and beat me to death. But anyways, it was awesome and frightening at the same time. So like I said, I spent the next year trying to convince myself that it was all right to go into the woods again. And I would go to, I knew the area that it was at, and what I knew was how to access it from different points, different places on different streets that surrounded it. And I would go to them one by one and think about going into the woods. I didn't actually do it. I tried it one time on that road that I originally found when I first moved up there, and it turns out that road now is blocked off and closed off, but that place where the rangers have put the parking lot or parking place was still open. So I pulled in there one day. I got out of the truck and try to walk. I think I walked like about 100 feet, and I said, I can't do it. I got back in the truck. Another day I returned to there, and I just back then, as soon as I shut the truck off, I heard a tree or a big branch or something fall behind me. And I turned the truck back on. I said, nope, I ain't going to do it today. It ain't going to happen. And it just, I'm still working on trying to get into the woods. I've done better. Actually, a year after I saw the thing, I went back to where I saw it. I got out of the truck and I walked around the area, probably about maybe 300 feet in. I didn't really go all the way. Just kind of took a good look. And there were some decent paths that at some point I'm gonna attempt to kind of walk. Maybe in October, September. It seems to me that October and September, I think these things either they live in this area or they're moving through the area and migrating, because you got to figure there's a lot of farms around here. As a matter of fact, I live down the street from a dairy farm. There's a lot of farms around here. They're collecting their crops in September time, October. I'm sure they're storing them different places and doing whatever they do. Maybe it is a high time for them to feed. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't know. I didn't know why I would suspect that I would see a Bigfoot in the area that I saw it in. It only took me 30 years to run into the daggone thing, but nonetheless, I did. Let's see what else. Yeah, so like about after the winter, a year after the next October 24th of 24, that winter and a spring, about 100 feet away from where I saw a Bigfoot, I'm going down the road and I see a tree, a pine tree, lodged into some hardwood tree, and it's like pointing into the woods. And I see it. I must have gone past it for like about 2 months, and I always stared at it. I figured, you know what? I'm going to get out. I'm going to take some pictures of it. I'm going to get a measure of it. I'm going to make sure that it wasn't cut by somebody and placed there. And I had a good look at it. I didn't see any kind of greasy handprints on it or anything, but of course, it's been already lodged in that tree for about 3 months by then. I sent you some pictures of it, Jeremiah, you to take a look at. And I'm about 5'11" and a half, and it's about maybe at the level of where my head is. And it's not jammed in the tree, it's just kind of placed there, kind of balancing. And I talked to a guy who knows a little bit about Bigfoot, and he says that sometimes they do that and they point it towards water. And sure enough, it's pointed towards water. As a matter of fact, with the trees, when you're going down that dirt road, you can see that part of the forest where I had seen the Bigfoot further up. And it looked like it's pointed right to where the trees kind of end and go in, and the water kind of passes by and goes out of sight. It's like it's pointing right at that curve. And I don't know, one day when I get the pursuits to take a walk back there, I might do that. So there's one more thing of high strangeness, I feel, that happened, and it happened like about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago on a Saturday night, I was in the house, and I was up at about 1:15 in the morning, and I decided to go to bed. Let me describe how my house sits. My house sits on a road. My neighbor's across the street. My driveway goes up, and at the top of my driveway, I'm about even with the top of his house. And if you go up into my living room, I live on a split level. On the back side, it's 1 floor, and on the front side, it's 2 floors. If you go into my living room, you can see beyond his house. And beyond his house, there is a field where there always seems to be a lot of turkeys, and you see deer over there. And they use the field for growing grass and they turn into hay, because every fall you see like hay bales rolled up and being collected. And on the other side of the field, there's a wood line. And I think behind his house, he's probably got about 50 yards of field before it hits the wood line. And that field goes to if I'm looking at his house from my driveway, and you go left, The next cross street is about 3/10 of a mile down the street. And that's all got field and woods of varying, the field is at varying widths. Sometimes it's a lot bigger and sometimes it isn't. But the wood line goes to the next street, and that street is about 3/10 of a mile further from the edge of the wood line to the next street. So anyways, it's 1:45 at night. I decide to turn the TV off and go to bed. I pass my room, so-called. I'm married, and she has her room and I have mine. But from in my room, it was decided that the cat boxes would be put into it. So I didn't like the smell coming from there. I took a look, and sure enough, one of my cats, I got some older cats, and sometimes the boy, he doesn't make it all the way inside the box, and he pisses on a pad I got on the front side of the box. The pad's there for that very reason. So I decided, well, let me clean this pad before I go to bed, and I clean the cat box. So I take it outside to my driveway. I got a door there. It goes, the garage goes into the driveway. And I come out and I put the pad down on the ground and go to get some soap to put on it and use the hose to kind of spray it off. And when I go out there, the light on the side of the house, I have my driveway lights on, but the light on the side of the house flicks on. And from across the field, across the street, the house and the field, I hear, "Hey." And this isn't the kind of neighborhood where people are up late and making a lot of noise and acting up. It just doesn't happen. It hasn't happened for 3 years I lived here. And then I hear, "Hey," again. And it's not like if you were trying to get someone's attention, you would say, "Hey," then you say, "Hey," to try to get there. But it was just straight, "Hey, hey." And on the second "hey," this owl goes off, like on the right side of where I heard the "hey." And it sounds kind of like a barred owl. And then right after that, another owl goes off on the left side of the field. And it's something, it sounds like an owl, but I never heard that kind of sound before. And I spent time on the computer trying to figure out different owl sounds. I never heard it before. And I found that's weird. It's not unusual, but that's a little weird. And then I hear, "Hey," again, but it's further away. And then when the owls go off, the one to the right, it's further away. The one to the left, it's further away. And I hear, "Hey," one last time, "Hey," and it's even further away. Then the owl goes off to the right, that's further away. And the owl goes off to the left, and that's further away. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that's highly strange. That is a highly strange occurrence. And I listened to one of your episodes where one of the guys said that he heard them say a word, "aruha." And I thought to myself for a millisecond, I should yell that out. But then I also thought, do I really want to draw attention from something I'm not sure about to where I live? And no, I don't think so. I don't think I want to do that. And that was the last thing that happened.
Wow.
A lot of high strangeness.
That's some really, really, I mean, that's a wild journey that you've had if you think of the entire, going all the way back to the 70s. But that area, as we talked a little bit before off air, I know the Newburyport area, and yeah, the marshy woods, I can almost picture them, because my grandparents, they lived in Rowley, which is kind of a similar area. But you get in those marshy woods, man, and yeah, I could totally see something being out there. Do you mind if I ask you some questions about what you saw that day?
Not at all.
Awesome. How would you describe the build of what you saw?
So I would describe it as a, if I had to compare it, if I have to compare it to a human age-wise, I would say it was probably like a fit male in its mid-20s to 30s. And you got to remember that when I say that the sunlight kind of does funny things with it, I can understand why people take pictures and the pictures look blurry, because I had to concentrate on this thing because I don't want to say it looked blurry, but it was, the arms were not distinguishable from the body because it kept its arms down by its side. And I just couldn't make out the borders of the arms and the body. But the body was like a fit body. I couldn't really see muscles or anything because of what the sunlight did with the hair, if you want to call it that. But it, it appeared to be fit from the weight, from the speed it moved, and the posture of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. You had said the shoulders were as big as a basketball, and I was just making sure that I heard that correctly. So is that saying that the size of the shoulders, they were as big as a basketball, or what did you mean exactly by that?
So, like I said, I had a profile view of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at it from the side, and I could see depth, but I couldn't see much of anything else. I only got a fraction of a second look at it when it was facing on to me, because it was in the process of turning. But when I say the shoulders were as big as a basketball, if you take your left hand and reach it to your right shoulder and feel that, the shoulder, if it was as big as a basketball, then I guess what I'm thinking is that the arms were huge.
Yeah.
I just couldn't, distinctly see them, that they were huge. And believe me, I had second thoughts about, did I actually see one? And I said, yeah, because you saw the brow, you saw the nose, and you saw the mouth. You could see that in the profile as it ran. And I must have had a good 8 seconds look at it. I mean, if you would take a picture and look at it for 8 seconds, you can make out all that detail on it. But I don't know. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. Were you able to, or could you put an estimated weight on what you saw that day?
I think it was between 8 and 9 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And geez, it must have been, I don't know, maybe it was like between 600 and 800 pounds, maybe.
Gotcha.
Because it was, it wasn't fat. It was fit, but it was huge and it was tall. I just want to say this about these things. I think that the muscle to weight ratio is off the charts of these things. I was telling my friend about what I saw, and he said, "Well, if the thing ever came after me, I'd wait till the last second and dodge to the left and shoot it." And I didn't say anything to him, but to my mind, it's like these things don't move the same as we do. I think that if you at your fittest that you ever were and strongest that you ever were, if you were that fit and you were that strong, but you only weighed 40 pounds, but you had all that muscle, you would be able to do things that normal people wouldn't be able to do. And you'd be able to stop on a dime, jump 20 feet or so. I mean, it's, these things don't move like people do. They just don't.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned the color black a few times when you were going through what you saw. Did you notice any other colors as well about it, or was that the main color that was present?
No, it was deep black. It was like look through the woods and you see a black that's out of place kind of black. It was deep black. Matter of fact, when I drive down the road, I take a second glance if I see something that's really dark and really black when I'm driving. I mean, it was deep black.
Having the profile view, and I don't want to assume, but you probably did not notice any details of the face or the skin color or anything like that because of the way you were looking at it, right?
I did notice one thing that I didn't expect, and that was the nose. I thought it would be like more flat in my mind because, listening to all the Bigfoot stories and all that, and the nose was like, that statue of a David, I guess it is. The nose is kind of a Roman kind of nose.
Sure.
It looked kind of like that. And that caught me by surprise. I said, that looks like a human nose. But I don't know. It's just that's what struck me. I didn't see any kind of color. Like I said, I noticed the bridge, the eye ridge and the lips. And it's funny with the lips. If you had a clay face and you rolled some clay in your hand and put it down for the lips, and then you turn that thing sideways, that's what it kind of looked like to me. It was kind of weird.
That is really weird. I've heard a few people say that, not specifically the statue of David about the nose, but they pretty much are describing the same thing. They're like, no, it wasn't like a monkey in the zoo or like a gorilla. Like, this is a different type of nose. And that's kind of what they are describing. So that's very interesting you'd bring that up. Do you remember any details about the hair that you saw at all that was covering the Bigfoot?
No, because like I said, it had a weird kind of like a blurriness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it was partly cloudy out that day. It's like 1:40 in the afternoon, I guess, when I saw this thing. And, I seen it 3.5 miles from my house. That was that was disturbing enough. I saw it 3.5 miles from my house. But no, like I really couldn't make out detail like that from where I was.
You mentioned a few things about the face of it. Were you able to notice anything about the eyes at all?
No, because like I said, I had that side view,
right,
and I was like about maybe 200 feet away.
Was there anything that gave you clues that you were looking at a male or a female?
I got the impression of a male. If you're a football field away from somebody, most males can be distinguished from females. You know what I mean? We're talking about humans. And that's the kind of impression I got about this thing. I thought it was a male.
Interesting. Did you ever, well, I'll ask it this way. So who else have you shared this experience with so far?
I told my best friend, I told a friend of mine that I fish with a lot. I actually told my wife, but I don't think she was never really interested in that kind of thing. And I think that if she ever saw one, she'd probably want to move out of here and never come back.
Right.
So I told her about it, and then I never talked about it with her since, because I don't think she's receptive to it at all. I don't think she wants to know about it. Matter of fact, I envy people that can just drive to the woods, get out, take a nice walk through the trees, a nice blissful walk. I envy you because, I do it and I know what's in there, and I have to think about it a couple of times.
Mm. Have you ever talked to anyone in law enforcement, or trying to think of the equipment? It's not forestry workers out there. There's like Mass Audubon, things like that. Have you ever had those conversations?
Oh yeah, let me tell you a story about
All
that. Right. So in the spring, I went to some of those fishing shows, saltwater fishing shows, and And, they're always there kind of stumping for their causes and whatnot. And I pulled them aside and I said, I seen a Bigfoot. I mean, how come you guys don't tell anybody that these things are real? And he kind of looked at me like, I'll tell you what. He pointed to another office and said, she deals with that kind of stuff. So I went over and talked to her and I said, these things are real. I saw one. She says, yeah, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. And I said, well, come on, you must have seen one, right? She said, no, we don't know we don't deal with that kind. I don't know what you're talking about. She just kind of walked away. And I said, yeah, okay. That tells me all I need to know. I know what's going on. But you're not going to have a conversation with one of them, maybe unless you get them somewhere and they're a friend of yours. Matter of fact, I told another one, and he laughed in my face. And I said, okay, well, you work in this business. One day, either you're lying to me, laughing like that, or you're really ignorant about it. And one day you're going to see one, and you're going to ask your superiors, hey, how come you never talked to me about this? How come you didn't tell me that these things were real? And he's going to have some issues, I think, of his own to think about, unless he was just up.
Absolutely.
So, good luck to you. Good luck to you, son. But by the way, I'm about 69 years old. So, I've been around, seen a few things, but, nothing like that.
Absolutely. It's weird. Different parts of the country, I think, have different receptiveness when it comes to, I guess, people in those roles. I mean, you talk to someone in Oregon, you might have a whole different conversation. I mean, I've talked to people. I talked to an individual at the Iowa State Fair where I'm from, a DNR guy, and he told me about his sighting. And I mean, it's just, you never know, like, the type of person you're going to run into, I guess. But, sometimes, Steve, people have these sightings and they start looking into to see if there've been other sightings in the same area. Is that anything you did where, you started looking around and you were able to find other things that have happened in the same area?
Well, I didn't have to, because when the internet came around and I heard stories about people having like that feeling I had up in New Hampshire,
right?
I got a good idea what kind of what was. I speculated on what happened to me that day, and what I was feeling about that carriage house up in New Hampshire, and I started listening to a bunch of Sasquatch stuff and heard all kinds of things, and I did hear about a sighting from the BFRO in the Topsfield, Raleigh area, where a kid thought he saw 3 of them in a row running in a certain direction. And that was like about the only thing I found locally. A BFRO report. By the way, I did report it to the BFRO, and they wouldn't put it in because I wouldn't let them use the location, because I felt bad for the guy who was trying to sell his house. And actually the same house is for sale now. And I wondered if the guy had some kind of habituation issue that he's talking about, and I'm not going to talk to him about it, but, just strange.
That's really interesting. And it really, that's a tricky one, because it's like, well, I mean, what's the worst going to happen? Well, I guess the guy would be like, yeah, get off my property and, call the cops or something. But he could have something going on, though. I mean, you never know, especially in that same area. But my goodness, Steve, it's a really cool sighting story. And it's been one of those places where I've been thinking for the last year, I know something has happened around here. And when I got your information, I was just like, this is awesome. This is really, really cool. There's more Massachusetts stuff coming out on the show recently, which is great. But, Steve, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show and for sharing what you experienced that day. It's a quick encounter, but you did notice a lot of really interesting details. And I want to say thank you for sharing those And I want to make sure that you were able to share everything that you wanted to share on the show today.
Yeah, no problem. If you're ever back in this area and you want me to actually show you the spot, I'd be happy to. I think the tree is still there, though it's got some age on it now. It's still lodged in the other trees, pointing in that direction. Like I said, there's up and down that. It could have been anywhere up and down that road, but it was in the spot where I seen a Bigfoot. So what was that all about? But I don't know what to say. If you're a non-believer, God bless you. Hope you never see one, quite frankly. Me, I would like to see another one. I'd like to look at it in the face, but from a distance. But anyways, good luck to you.
Yes, sir. And thank you for coming on the show today.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Hey, Judy, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great. What brings you up today?
I just wanted to tell you about a couple of experiences that I had with Bigfoot. So, I never was a believer, and I've lived, hold on a second, I've lived in the same area pretty much like all my life, and well, since 3. And so now I'm up in the foothills, and down below me in the valley is where I used to live, where I grew up, where they farm the cows and everything. So anyways, when I was younger, my mom saw Bigfoot out in the field, and I remember like being a little girl, and we all went out there, and the grass was like literally laid down, and it looked just like a big man had laid there, and we looked at all the footprints and all that, and I was like, oh, I don't believe in this stuff. Never have. And then in 2021, we had passed we went down to go get propane, because I live up above where I used to live. Like, it's in the valley and I'm up in the foothills. And so we went down to go get propane, and we were in 2021, and I was with my best friend and her daughter, and her daughter was like 10 at that time. And we were going really slow because it's like 35 on the road to go down to the nearest little town. And we were just cruising along. We passed a guy that was walking his dog. And then as we were coming down this hill, we saw this guy come out, and he was like really tall, and he was in black. And I would say we're probably like, I don't know, like a block away as we're coming down this hill. And we were like talking, and Lola, her daughter, was looking, and we're like, why is he wearing all black? And it's 100 degrees out today, and it was really super hot out. And he's just standing there, and there's no mailboxes. And I'm thinking, I go, dude, that's a gully. That's a gully. Like, why would anybody come out of there? That's a gully. I've lived here all my life. I know how the road is. And so as we start getting closer and we're coming up on him, we go into shock. Like, we're in shock mode. And we just, I swear to God, like, just coast up on him. And Megan just brakes the car, right? And we're just staring right at him. And he's like touching the front of our car. And we're just in a smaller car. And anyways, he's just touching it, and he's looking in at us, and he's smiling, like his mouth is open. And then he takes, I don't know, 2 or 3 steps and just jumps right down in the gully, right on the other side of the road. And we're sitting there, and I'm just in shock, and Megan's in shock. And then all of a sudden Lola goes, we just saw Bigfoot. It just brought us out of what we were in, right? And we realized Lola saw it. We just didn't see it. She saw it too. The kid saw it. The kid is proof. And so then we turned around, we looked in the gully and everything, and we couldn't see him. And I didn't talk much about it after that, because I was just like still in shock. I was like, okay, did I really see this thing? And then in 2023, I had left for a couple nights, and I had left my dogs for the night in the bus and stuff by themselves. And I was pretty worried about them, but I had to leave. And the next morning I came back, and I was in my yard, and my friend Jim was with me, and we were standing in my yard, and all of a sudden back in the woods where my grandkids have their forts, I heard movement back there. And I go, Jim, something's back there. And I go, what's back there? And so we start walking back towards it. It's not too far. And we get about, I don't know, I'd say about 30 feet away, and Bigfoot walks right out into the sunlight, right through the woods, and we could see him, and he walked right out into the open road. And he was like, I'd say probably about 14 feet tall. And to me, he was the same. He looked exactly the same as the one I saw down the road. But this time, he turned around, he looked at me, and he went down. And this is not a lie. He went down, he crouched down on his knees, and he hit his chest like twice with his arm towards me, like we're friends. And I'm just standing there. I'm in shock. And Jim's going, "Is that a Bigfoot? Is that a Bigfoot?" He just keeps repeating himself. I can't talk. I'm like, he's so close to us. He could have picked us up, killed us, did whatever he wanted to. But he didn't. Instead, he bowed down and did this thing on his chest. So I looked that up because I wanted to know, what did he do? Like, why would he pound his chest like that at me? And I guess it's like a sign in Congo or whatever with gorillas that means we're friends. And which I believe we are, because, listen, I have chickens and ducks and everything around here. And if Bigfoot wanted to take them, or a bear or a cougar, when I'm gone and going getting supplies, they could have them. But nothing ever touches my animals. So I figure something is keeping care of them. But that is the second time I saw him. And he walked like straight down the road. And I watched him walk right straight down the road and down the path and go right through the bushes onto the property. I live with about, I don't know, thousands and thousands of acres behind me. And I got 2 lakes up behind me that hippies live on. And then I got a lake that's a park lake down below me. And my property is the only one that conjoins with all of this land that goes way out everywhere. It's called Eagle Mount. And so I can join with all the lakes and everything around me. And I can join all the way back down to the valley through the woods. And so I'm thinking he's running. What I figure out is that he's running the foothill line, because there's, like, where I live, there's foothills that come up from the valley, and they run all the way down to another town called Quilcene. It's about 20 miles away, and then that goes up into the Olympic Mountains and stuff here in Washington. I'm conjoined with a lot of property, and I think the day I came home, he was taking a nap and he got caught. And so he was moving, because I saw like this person like try to hide behind a tree at first. That's what I thought. I thought it was a guy trying to hide behind a tree in my yard. And I was like, what are you doing? So this is our property. You can't be on it. So that's what I thought. But it wasn't. And that was my second time seeing him. And now I'm a full believer in Bigfoot. I'm not afraid of him. I still go outside at night in the dark by myself. And I sleep outside by myself sometimes up here, and I'm not afraid. I honestly feel like he's probably been protecting us, because with all the cougar sightings and bobcat sightings and everything people have, and all the children that have played up here and stuff, and nothing's ever got us. So I do think he is a protector. I do think he doesn't like people that are negative. He doesn't like guns, that's for sure. And I think he's just like any other animal, but he definitely is out there. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I'm a true believer. But that's all I got to say.
Thank you for sharing. So that's pretty much, it's close to the Olympic Peninsula, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm up in where Eagle Mount. It's called Eagle Mount, and it's by the Olympic Mountains. Pretty close to the Olympic Mountains. So I'm like up above where the highway runs like through Quilcene, Brennan, and it goes like through Mount Walker and all that. So
that's
but
awesome.
Yeah, I got a lot of forest around me. But I don't want people like coming Bigfoot hunting. I just think people should leave him alone. If he's meant to be seen, he's going to be seen.
No, I absolutely agree with you 100%, for sure.
All right.
I have a Bigfoot podcast. You may have heard me say this before. Is it something where I can share this conversation we had on it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate you coming up. Hopefully you can stick around for a bit.
Sure. I love listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you? Doing good. How about you?
Not bad, not bad.
What brings you up?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
What brings you up today, sir?
I just wanted to tell you about an experience I had. I was out west and I was alone walking the trail down by the river and near a big forest. And the forest was dark, but there was like a lot of mist and stuff like that. And by the river there was like a lot of beavers and animals and stuff. And I was walking my horse on the trail, and my horse started to notice some kind of sound. And so I walked with him for a little while, and he stopped. And I just stood there beside him. And I just left him there, like I tied him up. And then probably about, I would say about 35 feet where I was standing, there was a figure, like a dark figure, probably about 13 feet, 14 feet, standing behind a tree. And it was foggy, so it was hard to see what was going on. And anyways, I tied my horse up and I left him there at the post. And I was walking up the hill there. It was steep. I had to watch out where I was walking. And I slipped. And there was like the leaves were wet. And I started falling down the hill. And then I heard a big roar. And it sounded like a bear, but it was a little bit different. So I got back up, and after falling down, I cleaned myself off, got the mud off my pants, and then I started walking in the direction where I saw the shadow thing behind the tree there. And I got closer, and the thing was gone. But then a few minutes later, I saw the figure thing running ahead of me. Anyways, I tried to catch up to it, and then it was gone. But like the figure I saw was it almost looked like an ape. It was like the size of a gorilla or something like that, and you could tell it had a lot of hair on it, and it was dark and that. But after I saw that, it was like, was that Bigfoot? Did I experience like the Sasquatch guy? And so it made me wonder, was that Bigfoot? So it was quite the experience.
Wow. Where did that happen? Can you share any info about that?
It happened in the Rockies up there. I forget the name of the town. I think it was called Whistler or something like that. Or
Okay, Whistler, BC.
yeah, and it was like I said, it was a cool day. It wasn't very hot. Normally, the temperature out there that time of day was like, it was in the morning time, or like early in the morning, before the sun was fully set in the sky. And it was like a fall day, it felt. And then there was like a lot of fog and stuff, and it was really hard to see, but there's definitely something out there.
Wow, I appreciate you coming up and sharing what you experienced. Is this something I could share on my Bigfoot podcast as well?
Sure you can, yep.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for coming up, and keep us in mind if you experience anything else up there.
Thanks very much.
Hey, Ed, how's it
Am
going?
I there?
You got it. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, hey, my name's Ed. How you doing?
Hey, good. My name is Jeremiah. Nice to meet you. I saw your comment about something happened in Spencerport.
Y- y- Yep, it happened about 30 years ago in Spencerport, New York. I could give you the road. Right, there's houses back there now, but there's still woods. And there was weird things that would happen probably about a month before. You'd hear weird things. And I was always in the woods because the farmer, because we lived right there in a duplex, and he farmed the field that was there, and he would park his equipment right behind the house in his field. And he said, "Hey, could you watch it? You live here, and I'll let you hunt in the woods because I owned a lot of guns. I like to go shooting." And probably before this happened, what I told you about 3 weeks, it was at dusk, and I was walking out to the shed. It was probably, oh, 40 feet from the house, just a wooden shed right on the edge of the field there. And do you know what a chimpanzee sounds like when it's
Absolutely.
angry and it runs away?
Yep. Yep.
It screams, it thrashes. And I think this was a family of them. I'm not positive. And I'm not weird, trust me, because I'm going to give you a name of a guy who you might be able to get a hold of tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I know where he works. And he'll
Okay.
back this up. And this thing ran from behind the shed and it screeched. Like I've watched animal shows, and when a chimpanzee gets excited, it runs and it thrashes. And I heard it run right down the hedgerow, right into the woods. And then it stopped. Okay, whatever. I put it off to a raccoon, a fox, something like that. Me and Matt, my buddy, we went out back to do shooting. And I had my spotlight because it was going to get dark and we didn't know when we were going to get back. So we start walking back and the spotlight dies. And I had a 222 rifle, and I forget what rifle he had. And it's pitch black, but we knew where we were. There's a trail that goes right up the hill into the field, and you can see the lights of the houses. We get almost to the crest of the hill by this hedgerow that had a little creek in it that ran to the woods where that noise ran down. And I heard a buck. We both heard this buck snort. I hunted for years. I know what a deer sounds like. And we heard it and we both stopped. And I says, "Matt, that's a buck laying down somewhere in here." And we both didn't want to get hit with a horn, right? So I says, "What if we could put a couple rounds in the ground?" He goes, "Okay." So we heard it and it sounded like it was probably 20 to 30 feet on the ground in front of us. We couldn't see it. The spotlight, the battery burned out. It was dead. And it's pitch black, no moon. And you couldn't see your hand in front of your face, basically. So we fired 2 rounds into the ground. Where this thing was laying and made that noise changed. It was now angled up, and I'm guessing 9 to 10 feet. And this is no lie. And it let out such a guttural growl. I've hunted bear. My dad, my brother, and me, we've hunted grizzlies in Canada. I know what a bear sounds like. There's no animal in New York State that can make that noise. And it shook your chest. And we just hightailed it to the house. But we couldn't smell it. And that was weird, because usually an animal that lives outside you're going to smell. And I've hunted, like I said, we've hunted for years. My dad owned gun shops. He was a conservation officer. I know animals. But the weird thing is the next morning when me and Matt both got up to go to work, he goes, "You want to go out there and look for tracks?" I says, "I don't know. I don't want to know." I said, "No, go ask Matt. He's going to give you the same story, the same exact story." And you watch these people that go hunt them, and you're looking at an animal that can go 800 to, I'm going to guess, 1,400 pounds, and can rip trees out of the ground and stick them back into the ground upside down.
Right.
I've seen videos of that.
Yep.
But I appreciate you just letting me talk. But yeah, 30 years ago this happened, and it was, I can't remember the address of the house. And there's houses behind there now. There's a housing contract. They ripped the apple orchard out, and there's a huge house off to the one side. But the woods are still there. And I never went back and looked around in the woods too much after that. I didn't go out there at night. But it's weird. Nothing that I know in New York State can growl that way. Nothing.
Wow.
Okay, an escape, even if it was an escaped silverback, it's only going to be what, 6, 7 foot? And it's not going to let you stand there and fire 2 rounds in the ground. It's going to retaliate. It's going to figure you're challenging it. But yeah, we never went back out to look for tracks. And I said, man, I don't want to know.
Were other people in that same time period having weird stuff happen in the same area too?
I asked the old couple next to us, and they said, no, not really. And there was a cop that I grew up with that lived across the street just down the road, and I asked him. He said, no. The store owner on the one road, just on the other side of the field, I've asked him, because he was there for years. And he said his dogs wouldn't, the only thing he noticed, every once in a while, his dogs wouldn't wander off in the backyard. They'd stay up front. But he said he never saw anything. Gotcha. And I've asked people, but there's a parkway down by the lake. And there's a couple of guys that have supposedly video of one that was by the lake, but it was taken from a distance, and you couldn't make out what it was. And that was probably 25, 30 miles away.
Wow, down by Lake Ontario, yeah.
Hamlin Beach State Parkway. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there was a couple other sightings around there. But it was just weird. But I've hunted for years. Me and my dad, we've hunted, like I said, bear, all the way up to Malone County by the river, Tupper Lake. We've hunted bear. And we went to Canada, the Canadian Peninsula, and hunted grizzly once. And I've never heard anything growl like that. I don't even think a bear could make that noise. I really don't.
Oh, are you talking about the?
Yeah,
are you talking about
shot out back and?
Yeah. Are you talking about the video of what people think is a baby Bigfoot in a tree?
Was that down on by the Hamlin Beach State Parkway?
I think I'm looking at something because is it from like 1997?
Could have been that long ago, yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. Do you know how to contact those guys?
I'd have to look up what you're looking up, but I could probably find. I know I've seen it before.
Okay.
Because the only thing I have is a tablet. I don't have a big computer.
Gotcha. No problem.
I don't even know if they're still around. 97. That's a long time ago.
That's true. Hey, I appreciate you coming up, Ed, and talking about what happened there in Spencerport. That's a new area for me. Is this a conversation I could put on? I have a Bigfoot podcast where I share conversations like this.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
Awesome. All right, that sounds great.
Like I said, when this thing growled, literally it had to have been up to 10 foot. Easy. It was just dumbfounding. And everybody asked me, why didn't you walk back and look for prints? I said, no, that's a big animal. No. I don't care if you're armed. You shoot. A 222 is not a quiet gun. It's fairly loud. I think he might have had a 30-30 or a 45-70. That thing should have ran. It did not run. It just growled. And it just shook you. Yeah, you can share the audio. I don't have a problem with that.
Awesome. And keep us in the loop. If you hear anything else, feel free to reach out. Maybe we'll see you up here again. But thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, I just hit follow for you.
You got it.
And
Thank you, sir.
I'll see if I can look that up.
It was good talking to you tonight, and you have a good one, sir.
Before we wrap this episode, I want to say something directly to a very specific group of listeners. If you're in the military, any branch or forces, and if you've seen something that no one can explain, or if you're a national park ranger or forestry worker who's been told to stay quiet, or if you're a pilot who's seen something strange down on the ground, or if you're with the FBI, a federal agency, or working intelligence, and you stumbled upon something you're not allowed to talk about, and if you're a firefighter, paramedic, or search and rescue responder who's heard screams or found tracks that didn't make sense, if you're in the logging industry, on a remote oil field, or a trucker with government contracts, and you've had something happen that you've never told a soul, and if you're a biologist, a wildlife specialist, or a field researcher under contract who has found evidence you're not allowed to report, if you're a pastor, a missionary, or someone on a spiritual retreat, and you saw something that shook your faith, or if you work in the shadows, CIA, NSA, or anything with clearance, and you've seen what the public hasn't, then I want to talk to you. Even if it's anonymous, you can reach me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. The world needs to hear what you've been forced to carry alone, and you're not alone. You've got the story. We've got the mic. See you in the woods. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.